You ever get that kind of letter that makes your blood pressure spike? Mine showed up in a thin, wrinkled envelope stamped with the HOA logo, like it was some kind of official government notice. The words inside: pure nonsense. Failure to pay fines will lead to action. Your ranch has been scheduled for the neighborhood's next big event. Your attendance is required. Here's the crazy part: my land was never part of their HOA. Not then, not ever. My ranch sits just past their perfect little subdivision, a working place I built from the ground up with sweat and years of effort. But that didn't stop them from trying to act like they owned it. Oh, and before we dive deeper, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Let's see how far this story reaches. And let me tell you, this wasn't even the first stunt. A couple weeks before, I caught them dragging away half a dozen of my hens. When I went straight to Linda, the self-proclaimed president of the Birch Hill HOA. She didn't even blink. They were too noisy, she said flatly. So, we put them to good use at our block cookout. You should thank us. It was for the community. That wasn't a mix-up. That was trespassing. But Linda had a way of bending her little rulebook until everyone else believed her version of reality. The breaking point came one blazing July afternoon. I was by the barn, replacing a line of fence posts, when a black SUV rolled up like it owned the road. Out stepped four men in mismatched tactical vests and shiny boots. Across their chests, big bold letters: HOA Patrol. No badges. No authority. Just Linda's rent-a-cops. One of them, loudmouth with mirrored sunglasses, marched right up to me. "This is your warning," he snapped. "Your refusal to pay fines is being recorded. The HOA claims this property now, and if you don't play along, you're gonna regret it." I leaned on the fence post and stared him down. "This land isn't in your HOA, son. You're trespassing." That only made his grin spread wider. He popped the trunk, pulled out a crowbar, and strolled over to my mailbox. With one swing, he knocked it clean off its post. The others laughed, snapping photos like they'd just won some kind of battle. "Consider that an example," he said, tossing the crushed metal into the dirt. "Next time, it won't just be your mailbox." They jumped back into the SUV and sped off, gravel flying behind them. I stood there, fists clenched, staring at the wreck like it was a declaration of war. That's when it sank in: Linda wasn't stopping. She'd already stolen from me once, and now she was sending muscle to my property. And here's the thing: I wasn't new to confrontation. Before the ranch life, I served as a special forces soldier. Training like that never fades. It just waits in the back of your mind until the moment you need it. Watching my busted mailbox lying in the dirt, I knew one thing for sure. This fight was just beginning. They were going to regret ever choosing me as their target. That shattered mailbox sitting in the dirt wasn't just vandalism, it was a message. Their trophy. Their way of showing the neighborhood that Linda's so-called authority stretched further than the HOA's boundary lines. But Linda made one big mistake. She thought I was just another landowner she could intimidate. What she didn't know was that before ranch life, I served as special forces. The last time I let armed men push me around, I was overseas. Not here. Not on my land. So I did what I knew best: I started preparing. First came the defenses. Nothing deadly. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone, only slow them down long enough to reveal them for what they truly were. I strung a few tripwires along the tree-line. Rigged rope snares near the barn. Even set up a couple of nail boards hidden just off the gravel road. To anyone passing by, my ranch looked ordinary. But to anyone storming in without caution, it had suddenly become a puzzle they'd regret solving. Next came my fallback plan: my father's old Colt .45. She was worn with age but still barked when needed. I cleaned her, polished her, and slid her into the holster on my back. I promised myself, one shot only. A warning. My goal wasn't to take lives. It was survival. And proof. And sure enough, they came back. It was broad daylight when I spotted the same black SUV crawling up the road, dust clouds trailing behind. I sat calmly on the porch, rocking in my chair, rag in one hand, pistol tucked against my back. Out climbed the same four so-called HOA patrolmen. Their mismatched tactical vests still had the words HOA enforcement across the chest, as if that somehow made it official. This time, they were louder. More confident. Cheap radios crackling at their sides, boots stomping the dirt like they were on real patrol. One of them swung that same crowbar lazily against my fence posts, tapping wood with every step. Another adjusted his vest, a Glock dangling casually in his grip like it was just part of the act. "You didn't listen," the one with the pistol barked. "Linda says this is the last warning. Pay your fines, clear your barn, or we'll clear it for you. Today. Your choice." I didn't flinch. I stayed seated, calm as stone. That's the part they never understood. The quieter I got, the worse it was going to be for them. Finally, I stood. Slowly. "You boys sure like giving orders," I said. "So let me give you something real clear. This land is not under your HOA. If you step past this porch, you're trespassing under state law." And pointing that weapon at me, I nodded at the Glock. "That's aggravated assault. 20 years in prison. Minimum." They didn't blink. Didn't care. One of them sneered, spat into the dirt, and muttered into his radio again. "Save the lecture, old man," he hissed. "We're not here for a class. We're here to make you an example." They spread out, circling me like wolves, gravel crunching under their boots. The one with the crowbar stepped up first, smashing it against my porch railing with a loud crack. Splintered wood. Arrogant laughter. That was all I needed. Because what they didn't realize was simple: my traps were waiting. And so was I. The barrel of his pistol lined up with my chest. The other two circled wide, boots crunching on the gravel. "This property falls under HOA authority now," the gunman barked. "That barn's coming down today, with or without you standing in the way." I lifted my chin. My voice stayed calm, steady as steel. "Son, I've faced worse than this in deserts and jungles you've never even heard of. You want to play soldier? Then you chose the wrong ranch." He cocked the pistol. That was all I needed. The crowbar swung first, wild and sloppy. I slipped aside, caught the metal mid-swing, and ripped it free with one sharp twist. Before he could react, my boot slammed into his ribs, sending him flying into the dirt. The gunman flinched, finger tightening on the trigger, too slow. My Colt was already drawn, faster than his eyes could follow. One shot cracked into the dirt, inches from his boot. The echo rolled across the ranch, scattering birds from the windmill. His hand shook, and that's when I smashed the crowbar across his wrist. The Glock dropped, clattering onto the gravel. The other two lunged. Bad mistake. One hit the tripwire I'd strung along the path. Down he went, face first into the dirt, howling like a kid who'd just scraped his knees. The last one stomped straight onto my nailboard. His scream carried all the way to the county road as he hopped back, clutching his bleeding boot. For wannabe enforcers rolling in the dirt, groaning and crying out like they'd just picked a fight they had no business starting. And then, real sirens. Red and blue lights cut through the dust as two sheriff cruisers sped down the drive. Tires crunched, lights flashing. The fake HOA cops froze, pale as ghosts. Out stepped Sheriff Harris, an old friend from way back. We'd shared sand, sweat, and fire overseas. His eyes swept the scene, then landed on me. A grin spread across his face. "Well, I'll be damned. If it isn't my old special forces buddy. Figures you turn a fake raid into boot camp." The color drained from their faces. The gunman whispered, almost in shock, "Special Forces?" That's when reality hit them. They had no idea what kind of hornet's nest Linda had stirred up. Sheriff Harris wasted no time. The four were cuffed and tossed into the cruisers, their fake vests and radios bagged as evidence. Their charges stacked up quick. Impersonating a peace officer, felony, up to 10 years. Aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, another felony. Criminal trespass and destruction of property for my busted mailbox. And then came Linda's turn. Sheriff Harris had already been watching her, but once I handed him the letter, the fake violation slips, and the video of her crew smashing my mailbox, the case built itself. She was slapped with criminal mischief, conspiracy to commit assault, harassment, and fraud for misusing HOA funds. The county court didn't just see her as guilty, they saw her as an example. When the court was finished with Linda, her entire HOA charter was dissolved. Every bogus fine, every fake violation she had shoved onto her neighbors, wiped out overnight. When the gavel came down, her so-called reign was over for good. She was permanently banned from holding any HOA position anywhere in the state. On the courthouse steps, her precious clipboard snapped clean in half, like a symbol of her downfall. As for me, I built my mailbox back stronger than ever. Painted it in red, white, and blue, a reminder of who really owned this land. That evening, Sheriff Harris and I sat on the porch, cold beers in hand, the sun dipping low behind the hills. My goats wandered in the pasture, calm and free again. "You did just fine out there," Harris said with a grin. I set my Colt back on its shelf, brass catching the last of the fading light. "Sheriff," I said quietly, "I wasn't about to let a group of pretenders tell me what to do on land I worked, bled, and fought for." And with that, the ranch was mine again, free of fraud, free of fear, and stronger than it had ever been.